For me. All right, here. All right, what's going on, everyone? This is round two. I'm going to pull up to make sure this is going through on my phone on YouTube to make sure it sounds right. But I don't know. My computer just stopped working. Let's see if it sounds right. But I don't know. My computer just stopped working. Test. I don't know if it's working or if it's reverberating back. So if anyone's watching this link right now and can let me know if it sounds right, I'd be greatly appreciated. 1 second here. All right. If anyone's in the chat, I'm trying to listen to myself, but I don't want it to be like reverberating back. Let's see. I'm trying to listen to myself, but I don't want it to. All right. I think it sounds good. I think it's good. So let me get it live here on everywhere else. Geez, that was stressful, everyone. I stink at technology. And here we're going to restart it. So I'm going to for the podcast version. All right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. I am Jack Allen. As you see, a little bit different of a camera angle if you're watching live. It is because my computer is totally screwed up. So now I'm going to be up way later than my bedtime because we're starting a whole half an hour later. And I'm going to retweet the link out because this is ridiculous. So yeah, if any like computer experts out there, my Mac though says like the IMDMI or something like that. It's too fast. And this all makes sense because if you guys listen to my plastics episode, the guy couldn't hear me. And I was like, oh, it's his computer, not my computer, but it's my computer. So hopefully everyone can hear me and all that stuff. Oh, thank you, Ski. I'm just tweeting this out and then we can get started. It's an awesome episode. So I don't think anyone heard my intro before, but today's episode's about the book called Rulers of Evil. Now, Rulers of Evil was written I think in the 90s or 2000s. So it's a little bit older, but it's by a guy named Tupper Saucy. And Tupper, he wrote this book about Main Street and how Wall Street's robbing Main Street. And he didn't pay taxes or something. And he claims it wasn't tax evasion. He just wasn't paying taxes. He had some reason why he didn't. But he wrote this whole book, how the Constitution said, you cannot use a fake currency as our currency. And I don't forget the exact words. I'm not a Constitution scholar, but basically our federal notes are worthless, as we all know. And so that he took this, it went to court after court, and eventually they locked him up for it. But when he got out, he wrote this book, and the DA that was prosecuting him was a Jesuit, and that's what inspired him to write this book. So, yeah. So I'm sorry if I'm a little flustered. That whole tech issue just screwed me all up in the head. And Brian, what's up? Taxes, smaxes. You're right. So right. All right. Let me just have my notes so I can see them perfectly. I'm on Liv Allen's computer here, and it's just, I'm all thrown off. But now we can get to it. So, and the last thing I was saying also was Johnny Cerrucci. You guys should go listen to Johnny. He's a, hey, I get it, Ski. I know you're late. Thanks for stopping in, my man. But so Johnny Cerrucci, that's who, he's a big Jesuit guy. If you guys don't know Johnny, go check him out. He says the Jesuits are behind it all. I don't have any answer. I don't know who's behind it all, but he's very, and we gotten a little back and forth about it. And I'd love to talk to him more, but with this current political climate, you can't talk openly about things. So it's really frustrating. But regardless, this was one of the books he recommended. And one point that I'll say that makes me think that there's a possibility that these Jesuit still run the world is because once you have power, you don't lose power. Like the Venetian bankers of the 1500s, and I'm slowly working on that stuff because there's something there. These families, they didn't just say, well, that was a good run. We're good. We're going to let it go. Let all this political power and wealth we have, I'm done with it. Let somebody else do it. No, you would never do that. So I think there is some validity to these people that they have this power, especially like the Jesuits and these ancient groups and families. And I think I mentioned in my last episode that I personally did, like that was like this. It was how like the art kids and the Schiffs, their roommates in Germany, the Schiff family was a Venetian banking family that changed their name. So who's to say that all these families that we see today that created the modern banking system, blah, 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 didn't all come from Venetia, didn't all come from Jesuit-backed Jesuit groups and change their religion. These people do not care. They will hide behind any religion. So what would it matter? So that's one thing that leads me to think maybe there's something there that the Jesuits have much more power than we're led to believe. We always are blamed on other things, but regardless, so let's get into this book. So Johnny will always mention this stuff, but like how many Gravy Show says he wants all the Jesuit smoke. Dude, we got a lot here. So all the Catholics that run America, obviously our glorious commander-in-chief, Joe Biden, is a Catholic. John Kerry, all these, William Casey, all these Knights of Malta, Alan Dulles, all these people, they all go back to the Catholic Church. And we talked about how the Catholic Church helped the mafia, helped the CIA sell cover drugs and funnel their money, wash their money. But in 1964, the Vatican instructed their constituents to use their power to advance the cause of Roman Catholicism. That means politicians, that means doctors, everybody, so that the goods of this world may be more equitably distributed among all men. That's always a nice thing. Equity, distribution of wealth. Good. So 1964, that was what the Catholic Church was hoping to do. And this was affirmed in like Vatican II Catholic doctrine when Pope Boniface VIII said, it is absolutely necessary for the salvation of every human creature to be subject to the Roman pontiff. And America was created as a new place where the Catholic Church could dominate, a new Rome, if you will. And that's a big point. For example, the land that is DC today was known as Rome in 1663, according to property records. Like this just is made up. The Potomac River that borders DC was Tiber. The two houses available at this time in this swamp DC land, which turned into a swamp, in our founding days were owned by Roman Catholics. One of Washington's first mayors, Robert Brent, was the other house owner, and he was a Roman Catholic. His brother-in-law, Notley Young, was a Jesuit priest. So the first two homes in our federal city were Jesuit and a Catholic owned. And at this time, what's important to note is Catholics were not liked. The Protestants, I say we because I was raised Presbyterian, the Protestants left Europe to avoid the Catholics because they were being persecuted. So the fact that it's a little odd that a Jesuit priest, who at this time they were disliked in the 1700s, they were kicked out of education systems, they were the ones working directly with George Washington. So I found that a little bit, that's a little odd. Regardless, Daniel Carroll, that's another big name. There's a university, I think John Carroll, named after this Carroll family. They dominated Maryland. They were Roman Catholic. They got Maryland as a gift from the King of England at the time. What a gift, dude. Here's a state. Here's thousands of acres of land. Just insane, isn't it? Like, can you imagine going to this place that no one's ever been before, but these, I'm using quotes to them, savages, people that technologically inferior, and you just come in, you dominate, you kick, you claim your stake. And I remember like reading somewhere like the rivers, you could just stick your hand in and catch a fish. Like that is just like, it's so unfathomable. Just no roads, just trees, dude. There is just trees. Like we got to find some new land. I want to Christopher Columbus it. We're going to get there. We're going to start over because this shit ain't working. And so when anybody finds some new land, please let me know. I will sail there. I'll be your second in command, dude. I don't even need to be the leader. But regardless, Daniel Carroll, he's a direct descendant of King Charles of England, got his education at St. Omer's, a Jesuit college where young Catholics were trained in guerrilla techniques for advancing the cause of Roman Catholicism among hostile Protestants. The Inquisitors in Star Wars based on Catholic. Ah, that's interesting, Brian. All roads lead to Rome. True. And this book's, all roads lead to Rome. I like struggle with believing that, but this book's helping me sell that thought. So I think I said it. I was saying it during my last show that the tech didn't work, but the one thing that I will add to the Jesuit cause that gives its credence is that once you have power, you don't just give up power, right? Like the Schiff family and the Arkid family, definitely the Schiffs, they were Venetian bankers that moved to Germany, changed their name. So who is to say they won't change their religion? Who's to say they won't change everything to maintain power? Because they would. Back then, there's not an internet. So you go to a new place, you got, a bag of silver coins, tons. You don't tell anybody, but you are a whatever. You just sailed here and my last name is Bishop, whatever. You understand. So that makes some sense. That Operation High Jump Gravy says, yes, I'm down, dude. I heard, Admiral Byrd says that it's tropical paradise up there. So we just got to get there because we got to start over. So anyway, in 1790, Washington asked the Carroll family to select the land for the federal city that was called for in the Constitution. And he chose, of course, the lovely swamp of Rome on the Carroll's farm, and that was where the Capitol building was built. Now, this stuff is crazy, and I've talked briefly about this before. So if you ever looked at the Capitol building, it's Roman architecture, right? It's not, and that's not wrong per se. It's beautiful architecture, but it's just an odd choice. You're creating this new government, an anti-monarchy, an tyrant, whatever. This is all about freedom, democracy, voting, individualism, and you go with the same architecture that the people that you want to be against built. Seems a little odd, right? That's like a little hypocritical. Maybe why don't you create a new architecture, or maybe get inspiration from the thousands of other type of architecture all over the planet? You pick Roman because you're about freedom. Does that signify freedom to you? Continuing with freedom, the Roman goddess whose statue crowns the dome, was created in Rome by a sculptor. So then that's not the only Roman god in the Capitol. The great fresco covering the dome's interior rotunda has a pantheon of Roman deities and even a deified George Washington. Again, freedom. Let's do Roman, a Christian nation. Let's pick pagan gods. All right, sure. Let's pick that. And Jonathan says, is it Roman or Tartarian? True. Well, I'm going on but you're right. They could be even older but again, to pick the architecture that was used by the same people you're trying to escape is that's the point I'm trying to make. But you're absolutely right, Jonathan. Who knows where this architecture comes from? It could come from Tartaria or wherever. So no building can be called a capital unless it is a temple of Jupiter, the great father god of Rome, who ruled Rome with his thunderbolts and rain, Zeus, because that's what the capital was in Rome. Capitolium belongs to Jupiter and his priest. Jupiter's mascot, of course, Jupiter's mascot was an eagle. So one may say to themselves, wait a minute, America's mascot is the eagle. A Roman eagle sits on the top of the House of Representatives along with a 46-inch silver/ebony wand called a mace. And here we get even crazier. The mace is a symbol of authority in the House. Like if you're an unruly member of Congress, I guess they show the mace and boom, they're magically quiet, whatever. But regardless, it's a symbol of authority. It determines whether the House is in committee or in session. America's one national motto is Annuit Coptis, which comes from a prayer to Jupiter from a book that was made right before Christ. So far, we're just getting started about the Roman similarities between DC and us, but we'll continue. The poem that they stole this Latin phrase from was a poem that was propagandizing Roman citizens to give their life and limb to Rome. Okay, so again, we're seeing a lot of anti-democracy, anti-freedom symbols here. And we hear lots about fascism these days. Oh, anti-fascist. Oh, fascists are bad. they're the real fascist. No, you're the real fascist. And as many of you probably know, I disagree with the concept that fascism is inherently bad. I think a nationalist fascist state probably would be able to pull us out of this mess. But what we're facing now is global fascism and a one world government where that is absolutely bad. But a nationalistic government, and I don't want, as you guys know, every leader that's been nationalistic, they've killed. The CIA is killed. So clearly there's something there. But anyway, so it's weird how the symbol, that the emblem of fascism is displayed right behind the speaker's rostrum in the chamber of the House, called a fasces. So again, why would a democratic free country display a fascist emblem? Fasces is also a Roman device originated from the Etruscans, who the Romans got their religious jurisprudence from. So, and most of you guys, if you watch Tartaria stuff, like I have, it's an axe with, has a bundle of roots strapped together, bundle of roots or sticks, I don't know, but roots strapped together by a red sinew. And it symbolizes the priestly function into an infallible sovereign, an autocrat who can require his citizens to give life and limb. Again, that is the symbol in the House of Representatives or Capitol. And if the fasces entwined with a laurel, like the one on the house wall, it signifies Caesarean military power. Well, we got that, don't we? Don't we got that? The Romans call this infallible sovereign Pontifex Maximus, or supreme bridge builder. Caesar in 48 BC was the first to gain the title Pontifex Maximus. Now that name resides with the regular pope and his buddy that he shares it with, Papa Nero, aka the Black Pope. So that was awesome, that chapter, because this new land that's all free, we're all freedom here, baby, has all these fascist symbols and underlyings and worshiping the Jupiter. So as you guys know this, but why? That's weird, unless you're secretly a person that's hoping for a different trajectory of America. So the Catholic Church is recognized state in the United States. I don't know if anybody knows. I never knew that. Reagan invited the Vatican City Pope to open an embassy in DC, officially opened in 1984. There was one complaints filed, like separation of church and state, but the case was thrown out. And so it was said, since it controls a territory, unlike other religions, they get an embassy and you don't. So that's pretty weird. And then, of course, the chief judge, Fulham, that made that call was a Roman Catholic. So in pagan Rome, a fourth of the land was controlled by the priest. I mean, they owned so much, like a fourth of everything they owned in these pagan priests that they all had, like each god had its own type of priest, and they controlled something else based on what that god did. So Rome obviously switched to Christianity. Do you think that those pagan priests just said, well, all right, I got to find a new job. Damn, that sucks. I guess I got to give all my money away. No, they didn't do that. What did they do? They all just became Christians. Christians in name only. Sino, like a rhino. So all these possessions that were with pagan priests and their temples, they went right to the Christian churches and priests. The pagan gods and goddesses were just changed up to Christianity, like the sign over the Pantheon in ancient Rome to the fertility goddess Cybele, and all the gods was rewritten to Mary and all the saints. The temple of Apollo became the church of Saint Apollinaris. Hallowed icons of Apollo were identified as Jesus. The crosses of Bacchus and Tammuz were accepted as the official symbol of the crucifixion. And anybody that's in the chat listening right now, that probably anyone would know more about Christianity than I would. But is the cross in the Bible? Is it said, like, besides that Jesus was crucified on the cross, it's not in there anywhere, right? That says this is the symbol of Christianity. So that's what Tupper Saucy is saying here, it's just a changeover from Rome. That was the symbol they used. St. Peter and St. Paul replaced Romulus and Remus as the Rome protecting patrons. Pagan feasts were Christianized. December 25th celebrated the birth of Saturn, Jupiter, Osiris, Mithras. And it was claimed then to have been Jesus as well by the Romans that switched to Christianity. Saturnalia was the drunken season of merriment and gift giving. That obviously evolved into Christianity. And this, I'm a Christian. This is not a knock on Christmas. This is not a knock on celebrating Christmas at all, because there's a few ways that you can like view this. You can view it in my way. You can justify this. Well, your population is all pagan, and one day you say you're a Christian. We're a Christian nation now. So how do you bring people over to Christianity? Well, you can't make these crazy changes. You have to kind of, relate and switch over. So I don't think that, Rome picking Christmas, December 25th, is a secret us worship. Maybe to them, the people at the top, they are like, oh, we can secretly worship our pagan gods still. No one, the dumb peasants won't know the difference, maybe. But I'm just saying that I'm not knocking on Christmas by mentioning all these things that were just pagan worship that was switched over to Christianity. And obviously we know the Catholic Church is preaching something that isn't Christianity. I had like all these photos planned, but the computer switch, you guys know what, if you haven't, look what the Pope sits behind in his chair. It looks like demon. It's all demons crawling up from hell. Why would the biggest Christian of the world sit in front of that? And how the auditorium or whatever looks like a reptile. So clearly the Pope and these people at the top are still worshiping satanic stuff. But I don't, again, that this whole diatribe was just about me not knocking Christianity. So anyway, let's get back to this thing. So every empire that ever existed had a holy scripture. In Caesar's time, it was Sibylline and Virgil's, Adened. Brian says in the snake house. Oh, I got to slide over. See, in the snake house too. Yes. Yeah. I think that's what he's talking about. Like the snake, the Pope sits in, whatever that thing is. It's a giant snake. And we're going to get to why that is pretty soon as well. So every empire has holy scripture. And like I said, it was Sibylline and Virgil's in Caesar's time. These holy scriptures implied that it was every Roman's duty to sacrifice individuality for the glory of Rome, or Pontifex Maximus. Usually not a good thing. Usually when you have that kind of power over somebody. Sibylline and Virgil were so beloved by the government priests that they became part of the Roman constitution. Makes sense. They're telling you to die for your politicians. Okay. Well, how about this then? They were so beloved also by our Freemasonic founding fathers who, picked Rome to build our new capital on, used all these Roman phrases, capital, blah, 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 that we just went over. They also added a few phrases from these two books that told you to die for your politician, for your god king. Annuit Coptis and Novus Ordo Seclorum, incorporated in the Great Seal of the United States. These books, like the Bible eventually, were only able to be seen by the elite in Rome. The regular people only heard priests retelling what they said, and they told you what it said. You can't handle it. We'll tell you. It reminds me of I forget the phrase, but like in the olden days, the elite guy, the peasants would say, "Sir, could I marry this woman that I love?" And he'd say, "Yeah, she's a virgin, right?" And he'd say, "Yeah." And he'd say, well, after you guys get married, I'll be stopping in to take that V card before you can do it. Prima noctra. So it's just like that elite dribbling down information to us. That hasn't changed. They still do. They're not raping your wife these days, but metaphorically they kind of are. So anyway. But so when the Old and New Testaments were switched out with these books, see again, it's just this like flipping of swapping of pagan gods to the Christians and even the books. So continuing this tradition. Oh, thanks, Jeremy. Dude, I don't even want to get into it. It really stressed. I'm still a little flustered, to be honest, everybody. My tech issues. Jeremy said, glad I figured it out. But yeah, so these books that they used in Roman times that were only allowed to be by the elite, they kept that same tradition with the Bible. Only the elite can read the Bible. They will tell you what you need to know. Now, if people read the Bible, probably a reason why they didn't want people to have access to it. They'd realized that there is no Pontifex Maximus. That's not a thing in the Bible. The Bible doesn't tell you to go die for your elected leader because it's a good book and it's not insane like people are. So that was one reason why they wanted to keep them from reading it. Carl wrote something, but I can't read it because I'm already way past my bedtime, but it looks funny. They would also not bow and sacrifice life and limb for some human if they read the Bible that didn't say for them to do it. So the Holy Roman Church and Empire suppressed the Bible's intelligent reading, but all was not lost, though. Sprinkled throughout the empire were Christians who preserved the scripture from the early days of the church. Their Bible was their personal communion with the creator of the universe. And just like today, you can never kill an idea, dude. Knowledge will spread worse than any schmovid, bovid knowledge and information ideas. You can remove the person who had that idea, but it will spread and it will continue to spread. And that is why they silence all of us, because ideas and thoughts are so powerful. And just like the Roman Catholic Church did back then, they tried to stop it before it started. But by the 13th century, these communities had grown so powerful, not needing the Pope, not needing priests to communicate with God or worship with God, that Gregory the Ninth declared it heresy. You have a Bible that you're studying? That's a heretic. Get him. Isn't that insane, dude? Insane. So he added also the duty of Roman Catholics to prosecute heretics. Oh, your friend's got a Bible? Let's get him. To manage this persecution, Greggy here established the Pontifical Inquisition. And we know what that is. But anything that was deemed a little off path, you're talking to Satan, buddy, and you need to be killed. You want to rebut that or defend yourself? You're dead. It's already too late. You already died. So the inquisitors, they would ride around, go to town, go straight to the civil authorities. They say, we're here and mother bleep. We got to round up the people. We got to talk. So they'd go to the local priest. They'd say, get the congregation together. All the people would come to the church since the inquisitors there, and the inquisitors would preach against heresy and how people have a Bible. They're essentially talking to Satan. They're reading the holy book of our religion. Yes, but you guys are too stupid to understand it. And you're going to screw something up and talk to Satan. So at the end of the sermon, the inquisitors would say, okay, now that we told you what is heretical, does anyone want to step forward and accuse themselves of the crimes? And this is just like police do today. Like, I'll give you a plea deal. Just cop out to it. Just cop out. If you don't, you're looking at 3 to 5. That's what they do. For anyone that doesn't know, if you've been arrested, they will say, and most people plea dealed. I've plea dealed many times, because if you would take it to court, even if, let's say, like a cop, and we're going to get even into this, how this carries over. But if police arrest you with drugs in your car and they searched it illegally, you could fight it. Maybe you'll win. It'll be a 3-year trial. And if you lose, you're looking at serious time. So most people plea deal out. And that's what the Inquisition allowed people to do. And it would be a mild punishment if you step forward after this sermon saying, yes, I read the Bible without you. I'm a heretic. And they'd give you a mild punishment. So after you had your chance, they probably said, any more? Okay, you may go. So then they would go back to their lodgings and they wait for the snitches to come rolling in. And as always, snitches always come rolling in. And even if maybe you have a disagreement with your neighbor, he stole one of your sheep, he took some of your corn. Well, you thought you saw him reading a Bible the other day. And so they would go to them, and it was a perfect system, right? I'm sure that was never abused. And many innocent lives were obviously ruined. Trials, the trials for the accused, and this was really odd. They would sit there like in chains, locked up, looking down, and all the inquisitors, their people who are accusing them, would all be wearing robes and hoods, and you could not see them, which I found odd. Like, again, almost like a ritual of sorts. Accused were not allowed to ask who brought charges or what the charges even were. So they had one option: confess guilt and die. You didn't want to confess, maybe you weren't guilty. Okay, you're not going to confess. You're coming to the torture chamber. We're going to torture you, and then you're going to confess. Or maybe the inquisitors, did one of those like spun the chair around. He was like, yo, I'm not the inquisitor now. It's me, Jim. Let's just talk man to man, dude. You reading the Bible? Come on. You reading the Bible? That's what I imagine maybe happens sometimes. But regardless, they died. They showed no mercy. The Pope told them, show no mercy, wipe them out. No boys under 14, no girls under 12. That was the only rule. 0 acquittals ever happened. They were perfect. They were guided by God. They never got it wrong. Every single one was guilty. Also, some nice tradition that I was kind of just talking about. They would accuse, or any of the accused, before they even were deemed guilty or not, which they were going to be deemed guilty, but before that, they would have to forfeit all of their assets to the church. All of them. What's going on? Thanks for stopping in, Amit and Barb. This reminds me of something that we have here in America. So these people are accused. They gave their assets to the church. Family, tough luck. They're going to be begging on the streets now. Well, we have the exact same thing in America. I'm just bringing this up because of all of these capital, Jupiter, fascist symbol, all that stuff that's Roman. This is Roman too, and it's in America. Civil asset seizure or forfeiture. If you're a drug dealer and you get arrested, and let's say you're a very lucrative drug dealer, you do well. Well, the government, even before you're found guilty, they will take everything that you can't prove that you paid for through legal means. Car, house, cash, jewelry, everything they will take from you legally. You're found not guilty. Good luck getting it back. Good luck getting it back. If you, by some chance, maybe, well, with what money are you going to buy this expensive lawyer with? It's going to cost you thousands to get this back. And just to show you how screwed up that is, I was friends when I worked at the gym from this other undercover drug cop. And, I'm in recovery. So I was buying drugs in the same area he does, undercover drug buys and stuff. And I brought that up before, civil asset. And he said he loved it, as you would. Like, he would use one of his like cop cars. It was this souped up super car, like super expensive, that he would take to like expensive buys to make him look like a rich guy. The state just gets these drug dealer stuff or criminal stuff, and they use it. His awesome truck, and you guys know how expensive a nice new truck is. He bought it at a police auction, quote unquote, that was stolen from a drug dealer, an accused drug dealer. And that was the truck he drove in. And people see no one sees anything wrong with this. These people are innocent until proven guilty, and you're stealing their stuff for the government. I would almost be okay, if you're going to like redistribute it to the community, maybe you're going to build a nice public library. I don't know. But the fact that the cops see this immediate benefit and no one else does, disgusting. But that's what the Inquisition was doing. That's the point of that I just went into. So you can see the damage this would cause in communities. Smart people that are asking questions, that are saying, this priest is telling me this, but this Bible doesn't say that. The Bible has no mentioned that there should be a vicar of Christ that we should worship. It says actually not to do that. Well, you did that, you're getting killed by the Inquisition. Ignorant, brainwashed people, they're going to survive. So what's that going to create? More ignorant, more brainwashable, more followers. Like, think in our community, if the Inquisition happened today in America, the Inquisition of whether you believe in the government or not. Do you trust the government to tell you what you need to know? Our community would be devastated. We would be wrecked. I would be wrecked. You would be wrecked for watching the show. The only people that would survive would be the people that say, oh, yes, the government, I believe them. They have my best interest at heart. And that's what the Inquisition did. You can imagine the great minds it knocked out. But as communities got more literate, the Inquisition became a little more subtle. And now we're getting into Medici's. It's a crazy book. I really recommend it. Or you can just listen to these shows and save you a few hours. So Gutenberg chose the Bible. Gutenberg, we all know who Gutenberg was. He created the printing press. He so he creates the movable type printing press, and he says, how can I show how amazing this invention is? So him and his backer, Dr. Johann Faust, they said, let's go with the Bible. And they knew they were going to make a killing in this book trade, because prior to 1450, Bibles were so rare, they were conveyed by deed, like parcels of real estate. A Bible would take nearly a year to make, commanding a price equal to 10 times of what a wealthy person made in a year, because it was written all by hand. Could you imagine how fat that book must be, and what kind of handwriting you must have just to write across that? Like, that is insane. Thanks, Brian. Thank you. But yeah, isn't that crazy, dude? A handwritten Bible. It's just hard to believe and like imagine. Regardless, Gutenberg's popping out Bibles, baby, printing them out. And he maybe he was noble in his creations. I don't know. But regardless, he said that he was going to make Bibles accessible to regular folk. And the backer, Faust, who gave him all his money, kind of ironic, it's Faustian bargain, but he had a different idea. So he took these newly printed Gutenberg Bibles to kings, to nobles, to churches as one-of-a-kind objects. This is crazy, like funny. So you say, like, this is a one-of-a-kind Bible. You see the print? It's not handwriting. It's printed. It's a brand new invention. And they loved it. They paid exorbitant sums for it. And he was a trickster, right? Well, the Bibles, obviously, because they're being printed, are not one of a kind, right? So the church, they start catching on, like somebody's selling a non-handwritten Bible. So the church accused Gutenberg and Faust with magic. And they said that the only way to print something exactly the same over and over again is magic. And also they used red for the type ink. They said that they're using blood to write the Bibles. And Faust was arrested for conspiring with Satan. And regardless, though, the Bible still continued to print. And like I kind of just said, boots, the imagine like boots on our neck. You cannot stop an idea. They're so powerful. Once information is being accessible, that's when the elites get scared. And that's why they silence us, they censor us, but also they flood your brain with just bullshit, whether it's like TV or whatever, Marvel movies, because you have all this information accessible at our fingertips. We could get the information for it in a second, but it's either buried underneath hundreds of fake news stories, or you're too busy. And I say you, but I am lazy as well at times, and we stop trying to learn. So never stop learning. Keep reading. All of you guys watching are good. You're better than 99% of the population out there, but we need to inspire more people to stop just regurgitating nonsense. We have the information. But yeah, Bibles were being printed in all languages, all countries, all over Europe. And people were realizing, like, the priests keep saying this stuff, but this is nowhere found in this Bible. And it was 1485. You were now, if you found the Bible, you were punished, fined, confiscated, punished. A Catholic monk, against the advice of his superiors, plunged into the New Testament that had been printed. The New Testament was never printed before. And he was so shocked, he found no scripture that many of the church traditions had relevance to the Bible. 7 church sacraments in the Catholic, only 2, baptism and Lord's Supper, are grounded in scripture. The remaining 5, confirmation, absolution, marriage, all this stuff, were inventions by the Catholic Church. And this monk was Martin Luther. He found no scriptural mandate for celibacy of monks and nuns, pilgrimage, veneration of sacred relics, which is important because that's false idol worship, right? Like praying to a relic. I even like I said, I was raised Protestant. Even like more recently, I'm always like, why? Like, I remember the Bible story of with the golden cow. So why are we worshiping relics? That doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm sure someone more knowledgeable, they would disagree. And you're probably right. I have no idea. But Luther, regardless, that's not in the Bible anywhere. And only one thing can save man from his sins, and that's God's grace. Yeah. Along with this, there's no vicar of Christ to rule over a vast economy. Oh my God, this was so crazy. The Catholic Church is just so crazily corrupt, dude. And even then, so there was these, you were allowed to do evil back in the day. It was called indulgences. And the church would literally go around since 800, you could pay the church money to act bad, to give indulgences. Brian says, celibacy, all perfectly innocent, should work out just fine. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Brian. That's my type of dry humor. That worked out great for all those priests, didn't it? And all those poor children. But yeah, so you could buy indulgences from the Catholic Church. They were like government bonds of the United States today. For example, in 1491, Pope Innocent VII granted a 20-year butter brief indulgence. So Germans could pay a sum for a privilege of eating dairy products when they were banned. Also, when they were supposed to be fasting, if they paid this fee, they could break their fast and don't feel bad about it because they paid for it. The priest said it was okay. The indulgence salesman said it was fine. The proceeds went to build bridges, and it was literally this indulgence system was so extensive. It was like the IRS of the day. I'm not exaggerating. It was that huge. Every bit of it was fueled by people's trembling compliance, voluntarily presumption of liability. Just like why we all pay our taxes today, people were paying their indulgences fees then. You just want to be left alone. You want to be able to go to and from work or whatever. You pay your taxes. You don't pay your taxes, you're probably going to get caught. And that's just what these people did. Pay the Catholic toll. Yes, the Catholic toll bridge. In 1515, Pope Leo X issued a bull of indulgence. So this was huge. This was making it on steroids, the indulgence system. So every evil imaginable, you could pay for it and get out of it. You also, the Pope was so powerful, everybody. You have a loved one, you may be worried he's in purgatory. That's like the middle ground for anybody that doesn't know, and that's a horrible explanation. But your loved one who died, you're worried he's in purgatory. You pay the priest or the indulgence salesman 25 cents. The moment that coin hits the bottom of the bucket, he's out of purgatory. He's in heaven. He's in heaven now. You solidified that. You can rest assured your 25 cents. The priest called his boy, who called his connect, who called the big connect and said, get him out of purgatory. He's paid for. We're good to go. You could, anything you wanted to do, though. 4 ducats for murdering your father. 6 ducats if you were found out to be you're maybe a sorcerer on the weekends. 9 ducats, you could rob a church. 12 ducats, sodomy. Yes, please. You can do it. This revenue, half of it went to building St. Peter's Cathedral. The other half were paying 40% interest loans that the Roman Catholic was using to pay for this magnificent art and structures that they were building, making Rome this cultural epicenter of the Renaissance. So historians glorify Pope Leo for establishing all of this culture in Rome because he ramped it up, baby, in 1515, like I just said. And if you've ever heard my history theory, which it's not a foolproof plan, I'm working on it, but it's pretty accurate. If history views somebody as a good person, as a great mankind figure who did no evil, they're always bad, right? Examples, Abe Lincoln, example, Ben Franklin, example, you get the idea. Woodrow Wilson, FDR, my favorite people. And then if they're bad, they're usually good. There weren't a banker's bitch boy, excuse my language. Oh, Alexander Hamilton. History, they make a play about him. He's so cool. Alexander Hamilton, so hip. He was probably a bastard kid of the our kids. He was a banker's bitch boy who pushed for the Federal Reserve. So yeah, so that's my theory. But anyway, Pope Leo is viewed very well. Well, good old Pope Leo, his daddy happened to be a great Florentine banker. His name, Lorenzo de Medici. Oh, nice. What's up, Josh? Thanks for coming in. So Pope Leo, the corrupt guy, the guy that you could commit sodomy, you could rape a kid if you just pay the Catholic Church your indulgence fee. His dad was one of the biggest bankers who helped create the federal modern banking system, Lorenzo de Medici. In the 1520s, Martin Luther protested this racket, because that's what it was, by nailing 95 theses, this paper he wrote or whatever, up on the door of the castle church. And this church that he put his notice on, he said, this church of Wittenberg said to have a lock of the Holy Virgin's hair worth 2 million years of indulgences. So what I think that means is that because if you had this hair, you could do whatever you want, dude, because you have 2 million years worth of indulgences. And I wonder, like, did these priests back then actually believe that? Did they say, oh yeah, I can do whatever I want. I'm going to just pay an indulgence, or I'm the indulgence taker. I give myself an indulgence. I can go steal that kid and kill them because it's an indulgence. I'll pay for it, whatever. So Luther basically said to follow Christ, listen to their head, and through penalties, death, and hells, rather than purchase a false assurance of peace from a church indulgence salesman. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for stopping by, dude. He said, can't wait to listen. Sorry for the tech issues. Very kind. Yeah, it was stressful. It was fucking stressful. Oh, I never curse. I'm sorry. All right. Oh yeah. So Luther, and this isn't to say Martin Luther was a great guy. I know so little about the Inquisition, the churches and stuff. This author clearly liked Martin Luther a lot. What's up, Weez Play-Doh Snakes? What's up, my man? But yeah, so Luther, though, he didn't like the corruption of the Catholic Church, which I agree with. It's super corrupt, but was Protestantism really better? I don't know. You can see where that got us. So anyway, while Luther was jailed, Pope Leo died. The new Pope Adrian VI confessed that abominable things. He said, all right, guys, this has gotten way out of hand. The corruption is ruining the Catholic Church. In this chair, corruption has run rampant with these Medici boys, and we're done. Everything here has been wickedly perverted. He had an awesome quote. So he's a good, honest guy. This Pope Adrian VI, he wanted what was best. And as we have seen in history, good people, honest people, people who care, people who truly want the best, they never last. They always will have taken a weird helicopter ride that just they die in. They also like to commit suicide, these good, honest people. They also drown in bathtubs, or maybe they slip and fall and hit their head. That's usually what happens. And just like them, Adrian died shortly after saying how corrupt the Catholic Church had become. But don't worry. He's replaced by a cardinal who had been handling the Luther case all along. Another banker bitch boy, another Medici. Leo's first cousin, Giulio de Medici, took the name Clement VII. So just as Leo's corruption ignited Luther, Clement's shrewdness determined how the Roman Catholic would deal with the proliferation of Bibles. Clement was advised by Niccolo Machiavelli, and he's the inventor of modern political science. I got to learn more about Machiavelli. I've seen his name so much. And also Tupac, I think, is the one album was named Machiavelli. I think Machiavelli faked his own death, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Pretty sure that's what he's like, something famous about. But anyway, he worked with this Cardinal Wolsey, who's the Chancellor of England. And this is where we get really into the Jesuits. So I'm sorry for all that back information if it was boring. I found it interesting. So Machiavelli, who's working with the Medici, and this Cardinal Wolsey, they realize the Bibles and Protestantism, it's on the rise. They're not going to stop it by doing an inquisition. You cannot kill an idea. But what they can do is something even more efficient. By using that same printing press, they could produce literature that would confuse, diminish, and marginalize the Bible. Of course, Cardinal Wolsey, who came up with this idea of essentially doing a disinformation campaign or a psychological operation, he would go later on to create the Christ Church College at Oxford. And they coined it learning against learning. And isn't that like so powerful? They did this in the 1500s, learning against learning. To combat people reading the Bible, they said, what do? We can't kill them all. Let's create more information to throw at these peasants and confuse the hell out of them. Yeah, see, Wees Plato, read his comments if you're on the YouTube. He's always got awesome things to say. But if I read them all, I'm going to get too distracted. But I love looking at those. So thank you, dude. So the learning against learning. So again, the creator of a university that is going to teach Christians in England is at the same time creating a disinformation campaign to confuse Christians, to trick the public. And if that doesn't speak, he's a cardinal, for God's sake. If that doesn't speak volumes about everybody that has power, like that is just insane and infuriating at the same time. You never distract me, Wees Plato. So the Bible learning was everlasting life, believing Christ's death and resurrection, as well as so the Machiavelli and the Cardinal, they had to fight against this, the Bible reading. So they used a new combatant, Gnosticism. So Gnostics, we talked a lot about, they're always popping up. They held out the hope that man could achieve everlasting life by doing good works himself. So Bible learning is Christ-centered, whereas a Gnostic learning is man-centered. Man-centered, individualistic-centered, all these things that we see here in America today. So an enormous trove of Gnostic learning had been brought from the Mediterranean by agents of Clement VII. Of course, he was the great-grandfather of Cosimo de' Medici. See, these Medicis, they were all the popes. All of them. These banking family that dominated and helped create the modern banking system became the power leaders of the Roman Catholic Church. I'm sure no issues happened with that, right? No conflict of interest. So these Gnostic teachings, which were suppressed since Emperor Justinian shut down the pagan colleges of Athens back in 529, these celebrated mystical, scientific, and philosophical scrolls flattered humanity. They taught, and this is so key, the Gnostics documents or texts taught that human intelligence was competent to determine truth from falsehood without the guidance or assistance of God. So can you see this connection with modern Luciferianism or Freemasonry? Do what thou wilt. You are your, man is God. All these things like that. That's what's pushed out today. And this is maybe a stretch, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Even the whole concept of like manifestation, you can be whatever you want to be. You have all the power, which is, it's good that you feel like you have all this power and you can do whatever you want. But when you push away from God, you are going to be influenced by many things that are not good. And you are going to take steps that you're going to slowly break down your morals because you're trying to get ahead, because you can determine, you have the ability to determine morality. You can determine what's ethical. So your brain and greed is going to overcome what's actually moral and ethical if you're not relying on God. So that's what Gnostics want. So that this Medicis and these popes to combat Protestantism, that's what they're pumping out. And you can see how that took root here. So Protagoras, he was this like ancient philosopher. Man is the measure of all things. Man could control all living powers of the universe if elected or initiated into the secret knowledge, aka Gnostics, Gnosis. So the Kabbalah, man could master the Kabbalah, the royal science of names, numbers, and symbols to create his own destiny. Damn. If I had a joke there, but I like a GIF. There's a one from Paid in Full. He's like, he opens his mouth in shock. But let me read that again. If man could master the Kabbalah, the royal science of names, numbers, and symbols to create his own destiny. What do we see? I mean, I'm not a big gematria guy. I am not a big symbolism and occult guy. I don't know enough, but clearly these people in power do have faith in this. And this comes right out of the Kabbalah, like 9/11, all the numbers involved in that day in gematria. It's this Gnostic Luciferian worship, and they do it as like a ritual. And not that you guys didn't know that, but that's what this knowledge that was hidden and suppressed was brought back into power to combat people reading the Bible for themselves. Anyway, Cosimo Medici had stored huge quantities of this pagan material in his library in Florence. It was called the Medici Library. The final architect was actually Michelangelo, and he welcomed scholars at the papacy, said, he's a good guy. You can let him in and see this secret info. Soon these scholars were focused more on humanity, the study of humanity and secret knowledge, less and none on the Old and New Testaments. In the Medici Library, though, like, it was the cradle of Western civilization, guys. It was huge. God knows what books are in there. And so this learning against learning created essentially a war on the Bible. So to wage a war, what do you need? You need soldiers. They need a priestly order of pious soldiers conditioned to wage psychological warfare on a battlefield of human thought. And soldiers need a general. It can't be the Pope, because it's like a shadow war. So who better than a swashbuckling, using my sword, adventurer from northern Spain? And this is where we have, from entering from stage right, Ignatius of Loyola. Now, many of you know who Ignatius of Loyola is. Maybe you've researched him about it, but we're going to do a little review of info because I forgot mostly everything, and I did a whole episode on the Jesuits. So Inigo de Loyola was born 1491, youngest of 8 boys. God damn, that's a lot of kids. I mean, his mom must have started having kids when she was like 13 to have 8 boys. His older brother sailed with Chris Columbus, which is interesting because what was on Christopher Columbus's flags? Oh, right, the red cross that the Templars had. But we'll continue. My nose is a little stuffy. Loyola served as page in the court of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain. He was friends with Ferdinand's Belgian grandson, Charles Habsburg. So Loyola is a connected dude. And Charles Habsburg's grandfather, so one was Ferdinand, the other was the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian. The Holy Roman Emperor is essentially the secular pope who presided over the Christian kingdoms of the Western world. In 1518, Loyola was negotiating this Spain and France debate thing. And while there, he met Katharina, the emperor's sister, and he fell for her. This is a Romeo and Juliet star-crossed story, lovers, if you will. And some of you may question this. Is it really Romeo and Juliet? Yes, Loyola was 27. Yes, she was 11. But what do you expect? He's an amazing historical figure. It was a different time. That's the quote they would use, I'm sure. Yeah. So a 27-year-old, this pious Christian man, falls in love with an 11-year-old. What, dude? And I know times are different then. People were marrying cousins, marrying sisters. 11. Like, dude, that is disgusting. So again, should be like a great point that shows you that the Catholic Church, they're going to promote this guy who likes 11-year-olds when he's like an old man. Thank God, God saw to it that Loyola could not destroy this poor girl. So in 1521, his leg got blown off by a French cannonball, and there went his chance with the princess. They butchered his leg, but they reset the bones, and he got ready to die. Somehow he survived. Wonderful. So glad that happened. So while bedridden for the year, though, he could not get his mind off that 11-year-old girl. He stared at the small icon of St. Catherine. It was a gift from Queen Isabella. And he talks about this, I guess, not thinking, damn, in 500 years, are they going to think this is weird? But he said the icon sparked dreams of Katharina, the 11-year-old, which broke his heart only more. And if you're listening, my eyes was getting rolled in the back of my head. Like, what? She's 11. She can't even read yet. But so he read these two books over and over again because the Bibles were banned, as we talked about. And Loyola is a good Catholic. He doesn't want to read Brian, good joke. Brian says he paid the indulgence fee. Come on, dude. Mic drop. That was a great joke. That was awesome. But yeah, so he was injured, bedridden. He can't read the Bible because it's banned. This Christian man can't read it. So he reads these two books and over. So staring at that picture of St. Catherine and the books, they gave him visions. And you would think they'd be in visions of the 11-year-old girl, but he eventually moved on from that. His heart mended. So he started developing this process of just preparing and disposing the soul to remove all attachments. And he called, because he wanted to mend his heart. So he called these the spiritual exercises, in which that's what he would do with his disciples. So you had 4 weeks, 4-week course. He posted on Gumroad and he said, yo, join my Patreon. We got a 4-week course subscription. I'm going to teach you how to drop all this, do spiritual exercises. We're going to raise your vibrations, bro. $5.99 a month. That's my joke. I don't know if it was funny. But anyway, so week 1, and now just wait. So this was also interesting. So it was intense prayer, dialogue with the Blessed Virgin Mary, Jesus, God the Father, sensory deprivation, prayer for disorientation. Now wait a second. Sensory deprivation, habitual prayer for disorientation. This literally sounds like Loyola was like creating MK Ultra kind of stuff. That's what they did in the 60s, dude. Sensory deprivation, disorientation by audible things like playing the same noise over and over and over again for days and days and days while you were stuck in a sensory deprivation tank. So I am not saying that Loyola created MK Ultra, but he's definitely using the same tactics that we perfected years later. So anyway, the first week you contemplated sins, creating a vivid mental picture. That's funny. But creating a mental pictures in hell of all its death. Second week explores life up to Christ, up to Palm Sunday. Third week, crucifixion, which you're supposed to imagine Christ our Lord before you and you speak with him. What have I done for you? What am I doing for you, Christ? Fourth week, resurrection and ascension prayers for knowledge of the deceits. Oh, this was big. So the last week after they broke you down, you pray for the knowledge of the ability to fight against the rebel chief and help guard myself against his deceit. So rebel chief, we can see where this is going to go. So when completed, the person's imagination is dominated by pictures of Jesus resurrected and Jesus the King militant. So this is important because you've prayed how you're going to fight this rebel chief. That is all you've dreamed about for weeks. Everyone around you dreams about knocking off the rebel king for Jesus. Well, the rebel king is Protestantism and people reading the Bible and people not following and worshiping the Pope and Roman Catholicism. So now you have a soldier who's literally brainwashed, who is able to do whatever is necessary to restore people to that of ancient Rome, the worship of its chosen leaders. Liberty is sacrificed to authority. Individuality is surrendered to the Christ of Rome. And God has like a sense of humor for sure, because at the same time, Loyola is bedridden, making up his awesome seminar classes, his 4-week advanced class, Christianity. Luther is imprisoned for his 95 thesis. So it's funny because like two men, maybe earnestly, I don't know. I think Loyola is probably a bad guy, but maybe he believed in this. You have two men, though, that are going to be so important to history that are both searching for holiness, both searching how to serve their master God or Rome in Loyola's case. So he took that obsession over the 11-year-old and put his obsession to St. Catherine. And that's important because he took his spiritual attachment into higher femininity. Bro, my college professor sounds exactly like you. It's so distracting. Parker, my voice sounds like him. That's crazy. But people have come up to me, I'm not exaggerating, like 30 times, and they'll say, dude, you look just like my cousin, or you just look like my whatever. And I think that's because I have like a generic white person face. like with my nose and everything. So it's fun. You're the first person to say my voice sounds like you're somebody, but I'm used to this. You look just like somebody. I must have like one of those like really regular faces or something. Now I have a regular voice too. Well, it is what it is. So anyway, Loyola, though, he had this obsession with like higher femininity, to marry the queen of heaven. She even visited him in his dream, told him he's above fleshly lust. But I found this interesting because femininity, nothing inherently bad with that at all. But to worship it, what do we see today? Men are emasculated, effeminate, and I think there's something there to this, that Isis, like the god, a pagan goddess, there's something there that they're trying. That's why they're trying to push us to this feminine worship. Maybe it's to go back to Isis. Maybe it's like Phoenician in its history. I bet Wees Plato Snakes would know more about that. But I just found that interesting that Loyola was also worshiping a female goddess. And he just substituted with Mary or whoever. Jerusalem was so she told him in his vision, Loyola's vision, you're able to travel to Jerusalem now. So Jerusalem was the domain of King Solomon's temple, the spiritual center of the Knights Templar. You guys know that. But the emperor desired to revive the Templars, and his whoa. Okay, so anybody that wanted to go to Jerusalem were required by law to apply at the Pope at Easter for permission to proceed. Odd rule, right? That's odd. Like you can only ask the Pope on Easter to go to the Holy City. But anyway, so 1522, Loyola, he's getting ready to set out for Rome on a mule. And the corrupt Leo Medici, the ex, had died in 1521. Charles Habsburg, king and emperor, he helped engineer a election of his former tutor to succeed Leo as Adrian VI. And his paths probably crossed in age. Adrian was the good guy that we were kind of talking about that said there was so much corruption. Then he died. And he probably crossed paths with Loyola back in Spain. But regardless, before Loyola left, he goes to like a church and there's a statue of the Virgin Mary. It's called the Black Madonna of Montserrat. So it's a black statue. And it's the patroness of Christian conquest. But we're going to get more into what the connection is with that. So it's a black statue. I just said it. I don't know why I'm repeating myself. So he had like fancy clothes. He traded everything. He wanted to be just like his heroes, the Knights Templar. So he looked like a beggar. He hung his sword and dagger on the Madonna shrine and gave his mule to the abbey. So he adapted his life to the early Templar of poverty, begging for food and everything. He was also at this time initiated into a secret society, a Gnostic fundamentalist group known as the Illuminati, which was an offshoot in Spain and Portugal of the Knights Templar. So is it the same Illuminati that Adam Weishaupt creates? Probably same beliefs. I don't think it's the exact same one because this is 1520s and that's 1776. But what do the Gnostics believe? Now, this was even crazier as well. So Jeremy Crow, I don't think he's still listening right now, but he talked about this and this was crazy. So their Gnostics believe that humanity is satanic in origin. Us being here, evil. Adam and Eve were the offspring of devils. So the only way to achieve salvation from death or eternal punishment is freeing the soul so you don't get absorbed back into this cycle of what the archons control, this devil planet that we're on. This is their belief. So this is done by withdrawing from sensual pleasure, intuitively discovering hidden truths as conveyed by the Kabbalah. Oh, good. Oh, good. Numbers, gematria, and symbolism, my favorite things. Now the Gnostics have some differing beliefs. It's like almost ironic, their behavior. So some practice radical celibacy because the result of intercourse, conception, would imprison more souls in this devil planet. Damn devil planet. While others practice unbridled sexual freedom. Some combine the two with safe sex, I don't know what safe sex looked like in the 1530s. They did not have condoms. So I have no idea what safe sex is. Now that I'm saying it, I can imagine it's probably sodomy and, yeah, probably sodomy. Probably. So having said all that, unbridled sex clearly took over the strict celibacy. And what do we see today? Free love, man. People slut walk, parade, be proud to use your body and give it up to whoever. That's freedom. That is how you live free. You have sex with anybody you can. Clearly, this is Gnostic, demonic in origin, and they practice it too. So people that are pushing that, be proud. You are continuing a tradition of evil people telling you to have sex with whoever you shall like. Loyola, though, even though he loved that 11-year-old, he gave that up. Remember, he gave it up. He's done. He's done with that stuff. He preferred a different route. He liked whipping himself. So he was often wandering the streets, whipping himself with a whip that had iron barbs on it, and would just smack himself around. Clearly, this person is deranged, right? Like clearly, like he's like a serial killer deranged. He loves 11-year-olds. He loves whipping himself with an iron stripped whip. Insane. So he realized, though, as he got older, that this serious whipping sapped his strength. And as God's general, he needed to be healthy and ready to rock. Can't keep whipping himself. So the New Testament is being gobbled up by interested readers all over Europe. And Loyola knew it was time to travel to Jerusalem to ask the Pope. So he says, I'm going to the Pope, baby. We got to stop this heresy. So he gets to Rome. He proceeds to Venice, where he meets the Habsburg agents, and they introduced him to like these high political officials. Who arranges a free boat passage for Loyola on a small ship that was named the Negrona, which is funny because he began his trip worshiping this Black Virgin statue, and now he's riding a ship that is called the Negrona. 1523, Negrona lands at Cyprus. So Loyola's already been initiated in the Gnostic illuminated ones in Spain. He's already doing weird stuff. He's already communicating with beings that he cannot see, that he is claiming are, the Virgin Mary. So already he's going down a path that we have seen time and time again. Thanks, Gravy. But time and time again, we've seen this, like the people that communicating with spirits and entities, whipping oneself, all this stuff. We're getting into like a weird occult realm, right? Like John Dee and Edward Kelly with crystals and communicating with things. So already Loyal's doing this. He thinks it's good, the people from the Bible. I would say it's probably demonic entities. But so he's not even fully occult woke yet. Okay. So he gets to Cyprus, and in Cyprus, they pick up some new travelers. One, the commander of the Knights Hospitallers of St. John, Jerusalem. So since 1312, the Hospitallers, they held title to vast wealth of the Templars, which got kicked out. And they eventually moved their headquarters to Malta, where they made their final base, hence Knights of Malta. We've talked about how Alan Dulles and all these evil people are Knights of Malta granted to them. It's like the highest degree you can be bestowed in the Catholic Church. But Islam was not the biggest threat anymore from the Hospitallers' early days. The biggest threat to Roman Catholicism was, in the Pontifex Maximus, was Protestants. And that menace needed to be stopped. You can't have people willy-nilly reading the Bible. You must listen to the experts. You know that, and I know that. And until we accept that we have to listen to the experts, we're in trouble, guys. We need to listen to them. They know best. You have no idea. So Diego Maines, that was the chief hospitaller, gave Loyola even more codes, litanies, and formula, Kabbalahs, and portable assets of the Templars / Hospitallers all over to Loyola. So now Loyola has documents from the Knights Templar who were in Jerusalem and with King Solomon, who are all also Gnostics. he gets even more secret information from this Hospitaller. So now Loyola's got on his resume or CV, he's got Gnostics Illuminati in Spain. He's got communicating with entities, and now he's got secret stuff that was from the Templar days, from King Solomon's temple. So this information was all probably forced to be given to him, honestly, to start that learning against the learning, which we already talked about. But for anyone that just popped in, they wanted to stop people reading the Bible, so they're going to create misinformation, the Jesuits, or soon to be Jesuits, to combat it. So this can't be proven, what I just said about him getting all this secret stuff, but I would imagine it's the case. I mean, he's hanging out with the top dude of a old secret society that has tons of information, and he's a guy that's going to be that the Pope likes. So anyway, he leaves Jerusalem, comes back, and he starts investing. He heads to the Medici Library in Florence, where there is even more Kabbalistic information. So since they're founding, well, let me see what time it is. All right, we'll keep going for this last chapter because it's good and it sets up for the next show, which gets crazy. So the Templars, we talked about them. So just to continue, like with Gnosticism and how this spurred from the underbelly of Christianity. They were founding on French soil in 1118. They had grown from impoverished knights, fighting Muslim terrorists, from molesting the pilgrims in the Holy Land, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. We know that they were the first organization to create a international finance system and politics. Their founder, Hugh de Payne, and Godfrey de Saint-Omer organized a group of excommunicated knight crusaders who secured absolution from a bishop. They took oaths of poverty, chastity, secrecy, and obedience. You know, if you're going to join a team, secret teams are the best teams. They're only doing good. They're only secret because they're doing such good deeds. They don't want you to know about it. At least that's been my take from all of this research. Any secret group, it's because they're doing such nice things for humanity. They don't want to be bothered in the streets and oh my God, thank you so much. That's why they're fully secret. Also, so the Templars, they pledged to rebuild the Solomon's temple, and they had a guy that created some nice propaganda that the Templars were the epitome of Christian values. And this propaganda, even in the 12th century, it worked. They got the best and brightest men from Europe to become crusaders. Even though their mission failed, they returned as heroes. That's what propaganda does, baby. It's so powerful. We still have it today. Now, this was wild. They took their permanent lodge at Troyes after their mission failed. They came back under the court of Champagne. And coincidentally, totally random, everybody, don't look into this. The city of Troyes, where they took their lodge, that place had for a century been Europe's leading school for the study of the Kabbalah. I'm sure everything that had the Kabbalah that their new house was at, they threw it right out the window. They said, this isn't Christ-like. And then you add some other cardinals, the Templars' powerhouse and religious order, they just grew and grew. In 1130, their pope that granted them the power died, and new Pope Innocent II put a papal bull placing the Templars under exclusive vow of papal obedience. So now they only are dependent on him. They only can listen to him. Oh, here, see this? The Templars pull everything together. So all the Templar resources were at the disposal of the papacy. So we can see the connection here of Jesuits and the Templars. And within another decade, the knights were given exclusive rights by Pope Eugenius III to wear a rose croix. I'm not Australian. Croix. Rose croix. But the rosy cross, obviously the red cross, they were given the exclusive rights. They're the only ones that can wear the red cross on their white tunics. And their properties, and Christopher Columbus, he had red cross on the exact red cross that the Templars had. But their properties got bigger and bigger from all of Europe. They built these huge great stone castles Travelers would stay in these castles, like unmatched security, dude. If you were rich, you stayed in a Templar castle because ain't nobody coming in and robbing you. And they were convinced they were building a new world. The Templars called themselves, listen, Frere Macon, or Brother Mason. This term would be anglicized into Freemason. Boom. Templars are Freemasons, baby. And as we know, the Templars invented the modern banking system by this. I did not know before. So I knew they were the modern banking system. Like you could deposit your money in a Templar safe house or whatever. You were traveling to Jerusalem. You could then they would give you a slip. You could go to the other one, take out some money. They would hold your wealth for you so you wouldn't get robbed, all of it. Well, how'd they get this idea? Well, Cao Sung, the inventor of paper currency in China or Asia, he called this invention flying money, and he wanted to trade with the Middle East during the period of Templar occupation. So Cao's government was the first to invent this paper as legal tender for debts. Our currency that we have today, worthless paper, cotton, government created, not even government created, banking created that represents wealth. So the Templars said, shit, this is an amazing idea. We already have a business of accepting deposits of jewels, valuables, title deeds, loans, charging fees for those loans. Not usury. No. It's not usury. It's a fee. It's a fee. I know usury is Jesus smacked the money changers out of the temple. That was usury. What we're doing is you're borrowing money. We're charging you a fee for it. Ridiculous, right? But to add another thing to their wealth in creating movement or group, they started using that flying money, paper money, to serve as paper currency. So this probably explains why paper in France was first manufactured in the poor knight's hometown of Troyes. All connected. Kabbalism, Gnosticism, worthless paper money. It's all demonic. And I'm not trying to sound like a crazy satanic panic mom of the 80s, but it is, dude. It is. It's created by these same groups that worship not Jesus, that worship not our God. By 1300s, Templars were literally an international power. Diplomacy, negotiation, they set the taste, the goals, the morality, the rules of civilized world. Kings did their bidding. Henry III of England threatened to confiscate their properties. He was upbraided by the Master Templar in the city of London. I mean, these guys were so powerful. But with any powerful group, they probably got too powerful. Maybe they had to create a story, but the way history goes, King Philip of France challenged them. He asserted everyone was subject to the king, even the Pope. And two popes held firm against Philip's wishes. They love the Templars. They're bringing all this wealth, all this power to the Roman Pope. Well, Philip said, I'm going to assassinate you one by one until I get the right one. And he did on Friday, October the 13th, 1307. And numbers are interesting. Gematria. Philip put his foot down. No more Templars. And he only killed 13 of them. He tried to get all of them. All he got was 13 on that day. So this is why I say, is this a created story to rebrand, to spread and rebrand? Probably, right? We've seen, even in the 1300s, I don't see this as too much of a stretch. These people are smart. They realize if you get too loud, it's better to be invisible and have power. We all know that. People on the Forbes 500 list, the top people that have all the wealth aren't on the lists or whatever, the Forbes 50 list or 50 richest people in America or whatever. You know what I'm getting. It's better to have power, but be hidden. Friday the 3rd. Josh, you're too nice. He said he's back. He didn't want to spoil it, but I'm back. Well, I'm happy you're back. Thanks for stopping in. But yeah, the Templars were tortured, false confessions, supposedly. Thanks, Brian. He says it's a good one. I was worried it was boring, but I'm glad you liked it. So they were definitely not practicing Christianity. They all had been initiated into a secret Gnostic branch of the Eastern Church, which is known as the Primitive Christian Church. So this is what the Templars believe. This is what then, as I just said, Freemasons and spread a similar Gnostic belief. But they got this from being in Jerusalem. So they believe that apostolic succession, I said that word wrong, claimed to flow from John the Baptist and the Apostle John. They were Johannite. Thank you, Parker. So nice. He said it's great. Johannites believe that Jesus, though he was like a spiritually holy divine and endowed with astounding qualities, he was not the true God. So this is what the Templars believe. They're Johannites. Consistent with Gnostic logic. Whoa, I'm dropping consistent Gnostic logic. Philosophic. Sound like one of those, those underground rappers that everyone's like, yo, he's so lyrical. Gnostic logic, philosophic. The true Johannite God would never lower himself to the vile human matter. So like we talked about, Gnostics believe this is the devil planet. God's son, in their mind, would never come to this vile, satan, or evil earth. So they believe Jesus was a false Messiah sent by the powers of darkness. Kabbalism and Gnosticism, all of this information is in these books that we don't read, that we probably shouldn't. Maybe we should look at to examine what they say. But you can see if Jesus was the false Messiah in their mind, and these elites then practice this religion that Jesus was a fake Messiah, they're trying to bring the next Messiah. The Templars were trying to rebuild the Temple of Solomon. If they believe Jesus wasn't the real Messiah, there's like some prophecy. If you rebuild the temple, rebuild the temple, the Antichrist, their real Messiah, will come. So what do they do? We can see that all of these actions, since even the Templars of trying to rebuild the Temple of Solomon, have been happening. Just like why we gave Jerusalem back to, we created a country there. All this stuff goes into what I believe, this Gnostic religion of worshiping Satan, that not believing in Jesus because they're trying to force God's hand to bring the Antichrist, their Messiah, to this planet. So as far as miracles go with Jesus, they say, yeah, he did some crazy things, but God can do crazy things, so it's possible. And the resurrection, though, is not believed in the Gnostic Bible, whatever it's called. It's omitted in the Templars' copy of the Gospel of St. John. But like I said, they believe that God would never join this human matter and everything like that. So lordship over this material world belonged to Satan. Satan is the evil brother of Jesus. This sounds like a goddamn movie plot, but that's what they believe. So Satan could enrich mankind, Satan. So Templar Kabbalah represents Satan as the head of a goat emblazoned with a pentagram. Templar Kabbalah had a goat head with a pentagram. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. So this symbol is deeply rooted in Old Testament Kabbalah. The goat is identified with the power in the world and separation from God. The goat also comes into play Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. One goat is spared, sprinkled with blood of another goat killed for the sins of Israel. And the spared goat or scapegoat is banished from the congregation, released into the wild to bear these sins into the wilderness, escaping with his life and freedom. Oh boy. So much symbolism, right? Goats, pentagrams, blood, weird blood things. All of this is in the Gnostic Kabbalah. And this is what the Templars practiced, which then spread out into all these Freemasonry and all this stuff like that. So we all know this, but Freemasonry is Satan worship, and it's under its levels. It's an onion. It's got layers like Shrek. It's an onion. And in these layers, that's what it is. It's Satan worship. So King Solomon conferred with evil spirits, but so their books are so different than ours, this Kabbalah and the Gnostics. So according to them, King Solomon conferred with evil spirits. And our scripture describes it just like they say spirits. They don't. And thanks, Brian. I'll list my Venmo and stuff, but you're right. I got to figure out how to put it on the screen. But our scripture, it just says Solomon talked to spirits, doesn't elaborate. The Zohar, or the Book of Splendor, a main works of ancient Kabbalistic literature, tells us these evil spirits appeared to him in the form of he-goats and made known to people who wanted to learn. They would tell that these he-goats would tell them all. Oh, shit, right? Talking with spirits that look like a goat with a man, and they're giving him all the quote unquote secrets to knowledge. And Templars called this goat idol Baphomet, from Baffy and Metis. I don't know what the hell what relevance that is, but I wrote it down. Maybe you know. And absorb the wisdom. Oh yeah. So they said they like worship Solomon, who absorbed the most wisdom of God more than anyone. Freemasons, King Solomon is all in their ceremonies, is all in their rituals, because in Gnostic works, King Solomon and Kabbalah and Zohar, he's the boss. He's the best one. And he communicating with evil spirits. He's the smartest one. So the Templars also want to communicate with evil spirits. And so does everybody else that practice this Kabbalistic Gnostic worship, Johannite worship. Communicating with evil spirits was the secret to controlling knowledge and the world. Dun, dun, dun. Whereas our Bible uses Solomon as like the example. He tried to be perfect, but as a human, we are imperfect. The only way to be perfect is following God. And that's like talked about in the New Testament, which Rome kept the Templars from reading. You got to keep them thinking that way. We're almost done here. So in 1312, the Pope Clement dissolved the Knights Templar, but it was a formality. They already did the Friday the 13th killing, blah, 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 blah. But the Pope said, look how good I am, King Philip. I'm dissolving them. And really, though, it was a win because, as I said, the Templars, now they're officially disbanded. So what did Grandmaster de Molay, prior to his execution in 1313, sent 13 French Templars. You see, look at all these goddamn numbers. 13 were caught, 13 French Templars, really showing their Gnostic belief. So he said, go establish 4 new metropolitan lodges in these various cities. Like they went to London, or, London and Spain, Barcelona, all these places where, and how are we go? So they went to also all of their wealth. The Knights, they're gone now. There still was a militant arm of the papacy, but their wealth, their secrecy, Gnostic Kabbalism, all of that stuff was obscured. So now it's a win for disbanding the Templars because these people still exist. They still have the same beliefs. Now they're going to spread out and create their own groups, all loyal to the Pope. Also, a lot of their estates were transferred to the Hospitallers, like Loyola, and information which Loyola got when he traveled to Jerusalem. So that how Molay said spread out to these 4 places. In Germany, the Templars became the Rosicrucians, hence because of the Red Cross, or the Teutonic Knights, who grew strong in Gutenberg's hometown. And 6 centuries later, the Teutonic Order provided the nucleus of Adolf Hitler's political support. In Edinburgh, the lodge would become the HQ of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, or American Freemasonry. It's called that because five signers of the Declaration all were Scottish Freemasons, all Satan worshipers, all Gnostic Kabbalistic worshipers. Probably why they wanted the separation of church and state, so they could do their weird shit and not be bothered. One of the Templars went to Spain and Portugal, where they became the Illuminati, whom Loyola had taken membership. And also, I said, as Columbus sailed under the red Pate cross of the Knights Templar. So as early as 1523, Loyola now has been aware of this fragmented system of Kabbalistic Gnostic soldiers that were under the Pope, and he's going to bring it together. And they all hated the Pope because he canceled their stuff. So he's going to use their disdain for the Pope to unite them under a single cause. Seemingly, they're going to be acting against Roman Catholicism, but really, it's exactly what the Roman Catholic Church had hoped and imagined. And that is where we are going to end. I'm way past my bedtime. I was all thrown off from my tech issues, so I'm redoing my intro at the outro. Brian, thank you. And Josh, if you want to support the show, I got a Venmo, and I'll put the links in the show notes at Conspiracy or JAC. I also got a link tree, and you can find everything there. And I have a Patreon, Conspiracy or JAC, or Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. Josh is nice enough to support me. Gravy for Pope. Vote me at this end of year's Pope off. You got my vote, Gravy. Go check out Gravy Show too. But yeah, so you want to support the show, that's how you do it. Share it, like it, leave a review. You guys rock. Thanks for bearing with me, even though I was late. I hate being late. Hey, God bless you two guys. I'm Jack Allen from Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. You'll be seeing me soon. All right, my friends. Peace.